At family dinner I found out about my sister's luxury vacation while I was helping her. So I said enough. How dare you say no? My dad said. I went and canceled all payments and then, at a family dinner, I learned that my sister, Emily, had just returned from a luxury vacation. Even though I'd been sending her money to help out, I couldn't believe it. Enough, I blurted out, but she just shrugged it off. My dad jumped in. I went ahead and canceled all payments. For the past 2 years, I'd been supporting Emily financially. She always claimed her life was falling apart. 2 kids to care for, a deadbeat ex who couldn't hold a job, and bills that just kept piling up. Every month I sent her money, thinking I was keeping her and my nieces afloat. She sounded desperate, as if one bad month would send her over the edge, so I never questioned her story. That is, until my mom's birthday dinner. The whole family was gathered at my parents' house, a rare time when everyone was actually together. At first, the conversation was light. Work, the kids, and some gossip about a distant cousin. Then Emily, sitting right across from me, began talking about her recent trip. I initially assumed she was joking or excited about a future getaway. But no, she claimed she'd been to this unbelievable resort. With the same nonchalance as cutting into her steak on a Tuesday, she described a private beach, an all-inclusive setup, and a spa that left her more relaxed than ever. I sat there waiting for her to explain how on earth this could have happened. Then she laughed and dropped the bomb. Her kids had stayed with mom and dad the entire time. For once I was actually enjoying the dinner. But the mood shifted in an instant. I leaned forward. Wait, you went to Hawaii? She shot me a confused look and then casually replied, with what money? As if my question didn't make sense. My jaw tightened. My mom shifted uncomfortably, and my dad pretended not to hear. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You used the money I sent you, the money meant for the kids' vacation? I asked. Emily just rolled her eyes. Relax, the kids are fine. They had fun with mom and dad. I glanced over at my nieces. They were playing quietly in the corner, still dressed in the same worn-out clothes I'd seen before, the kind you assume their mom couldn't afford to replace. Meanwhile, here was Emily sipping cocktails on a beach. I kept my voice even. I gave you that money because you said you were struggling. She took a sip of wine and, fighting back emotions, said, Tom, I needed a break. I deserve to be happy too. I almost laughed. Instead of using the money for new clothes or to pay off bills, she chose a luxury vacation. You don't get it, she continued dismissively. I had to go meet someone. I can't be a struggling single mom forever. Then with a bright smile she added, that's how I met Jacob. Who the hell is Jacob? I snapped. She beamed as if she'd just won the lottery. Oh my god, Tom, he's amazing. He owns his own business and drives a Tesla. One of our cousins muttered under his breath. So you used Tom's money to find a rich boyfriend? Emily ignored him. He's successful, mature. Everything I've been looking for. I clenched my fists under the table. Unbelievable. She sighed. Don't be dramatic. That was it, the moment I snapped. Enough. You're not getting another dime from me. Emily froze, and before she could say anything, my father slammed his hand on the table. How dare you say no to your own sister? I stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious? She's trying to rebuild her life. She's trying to find a good man, my mom added. And you want to punish her for that? I laughed bitterly. Using my money for a vacation while your kids wear hand-me-downs. She's your sister. My dad replied as if that was the only point that mattered. I shook my head. Yes, I'm your son, but that doesn't mean I should be taken advantage of. Emily crossed her arms. Fine, I won't do it again. No, I'm done, I declared, rising from my seat. As I reached the door I added, oh, and I'm canceling the payments on your car loan too. The room erupted. My parents jumped up, pleading with me not to do it. My mom was practically hysterical, swearing she couldn't survive without the car, and my dad's face turned red with anger. Emily's expression changed from shock to pure rage, but I didn't care. I left my parents' house with them yelling behind me, my hands trembling with anger as I drove home. For 2 years I'd cut back on my own life so that Emily and her kids wouldn't struggle. And all the while she had been lying, using my money for fancy vacations while chasing a fantasy of finding a rich guy, even as her kids wore worn-out clothes. Once home, I opened my banking app and started cutting her off. First, I canceled the automatic transfers for her rent and utilities. Then I canceled the payments on my parents' car loan. The one I'd been paying for almost a year because they claimed they couldn't afford it. Felt like reclaiming control. Almost immediately my phone blew up. The first text was from Emily. Tom, what the hell? My rent just bounced. Fix it. I ignored it. Then my mom called and I sent her straight to voicemail. My dad called next, followed by more messages from Emily and mom. Soon the guilt trips began. Mom, I hope you're happy. If I end up in the hospital from stress, it'll be your fault, I texted, my jaw clenched as I stared at the screen. There wasn't a single apology, just more accusations making me feel like the villain. Emily texted again, Tom, you're seriously doing this? You're just going to let me and my kids end up homeless? Unbelievable. I took a deep breath and replied, you lied to me for 2 years. You said you were struggling so I helped you, but you used my money for vacations. You don't need help. You're on your own now. Her reply came fast. Wow, you're such a selfish bastard. Do you have any idea how hard it is to be a single mom? I needed that trip. I was trying to find a good man so I wouldn't struggle forever. But you wouldn't understand because you don't care about family. I could feel my blood pressure rising. Your kids are wearing hand-me-downs while you sip cocktails at a 5-star resort. You're not looking for a good man. You're looking for a sugar daddy, and you expected me to pay for it. No answer came. Then my dad called again. I answered and he snapped, "Are you out of your mind?" I sighed, "What do you want, Dad?" "I want to know why you canceled the car payments. We were counting on you for that." I almost laughed. "You counted on me? This was supposed to be temporary until you got back on your feet. It's been a year, you can't just take it away." "I can, and I did." "It's unforgivable," he said. "You're punishing your own family over a stupid misunderstanding." I gritted my teeth. "A misunderstanding? You cheated me for 2 years. It's called helping your sister, Tom. Something you clearly don't get." I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls. From Emily, Mom, Dad. Even texts from my sister asking what was going on. I sighed, already dreading the day they'd let this go. And then the knocking began. Loud, rapid, and angry. I knew who it was before I even checked my phone. I swung the door open to find Mom and Emily standing there, arms crossed, ready to tear me apart. "We need to talk," Mom said, pushing past me into the house. Emily followed, slamming the door behind her. "What the hell is wrong with you, Tom?" Emily demanded. I crossed my arms. "Good morning to you." Mom ignored my remark. "You're going to fix this now," she insisted. I let out a short laugh. "Fix what?" "The fact that I stopped letting you all use me as a bank." Emily threw her hands up. "You're being insane. I have bills to pay, Tom. My kids need a home. You can't just cut me off like that." I leaned against the counter. "You mean the same kids you left with Mom and Dad so you could run off to Hawaii?" She clenched her jaw. "It was one trip, paid for with my money." Mom stepped in. "Listen, I understand you're upset, but you're taking this too far. You can't just abandon your family like this." I stared at her. "Abandon? I gave Emily thousands over the past 2 years. I even paid for your car. I helped every time you asked, and what did I get in return? Lies and being taken advantage of." Emily groaned. "You're being so dramatic. You're my brother, you're supposed to help me." I shook my head. "Not like this." Mom's expression darkened. "If you don't help her, what do you expect? For her to end up on the street, and for us to too? Is that what you want?" I exhaled sharply. "You all aren't my responsibility. Emily had plenty of money, my money, but she spent it on herself. That's on her." Emily's voice dropped. "I swear, Tom, if you don't fix this, I cut you off. You go on another vacation, buy a new designer bag, and then cry to Mom and Dad some more." Her face turned red with anger. "You don't understand, Tom. You have no idea how hard it is to be a single mom or how it feels to be used by your own family," she shot back. Mom grabbed my arm, her voice softening. "Please, Tom, if you stop helping, I don't know what will happen to me. My health is already bad. If I end up in the hospital because of this, it'll be your fault." I pulled away. "Don't do that. Don't ever use that against me." Emily let out a sharp breath. "Fine, be selfish, but you're making a huge mistake." I opened the door. "Get out." They glared at me for a long moment before leaving, and I locked the door behind them. I thought having Jacob show up would be the worst of it, but I was wrong. That night, around 10 p.m., there was another knock. I checked the caller ID, half expecting Jacob or even Emily finally coming face to face, but it was Mom again. I hesitated. Letting her in meant another exhausting conversation filled with guilt trips and tears, but if I didn't answer, she'd probably call all night until I caved. I opened the door. "Mom," I said. She pushed past me into the apartment. "We need to talk." I sighed and shut the door behind her. "If this is about Emily, then it's about me, Tom," she said. Something in her tone made me turn around quickly. She was clutching a bottle of pills. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing?" I asked. Her eyes were broken. "I can't take this anymore. The stress, the shame of my own son turning his back on his family. Do you know what this is doing to me?" She twisted the cap off the bottle. My heart pounded. "Mom, stop." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Maybe if I weren't around, you'd feel bad about what you've done." Before she could do anything else, I grabbed the bottle from her. I read the label. Sleep aids over the counter, not even prescription strength. It was clear she wasn't really going to do it. She was just trying to manipulate me. I exhaled sharply. "You really came all the way here to fake a suicide attempt just to force me into giving Emily more money?" She sniffled. "I wouldn't have to if you weren't so cruel." I clenched my jaw. "This is insane. You're trying to emotionally blackmail me into supporting Emily." She wiped her tears away and her face hardened instantly. "It's not just about Emily. You cut us off too, you left your own parents to struggle." I shook my head. "They're struggling because you expected me to bail you out forever. That's not my problem." She gripped my arm, nails digging in. "Undo this right now." I pried her fingers off and opened the door. "Go home, Mom." She stared at me, lips pressed together, then whispered, "Fine, but if I end up in the hospital, you'll have to live with it." I said nothing as she walked out and locked the door behind her, my whole body tense. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Emily. "Wow, she just left your place. You really wouldn't even help Mom." Another came. "What kind of son are you, Dad? I always knew you were selfish, but this is unforgivable." I turned my phone off, telling myself it was over. But the real nightmare began the next morning. I woke up to an email from my boss with the subject, "Urgent HR complaint." My stomach churned as I opened it. An anonymous complaint had been filed against me. Someone accused me of stealing company funds and misusing corporate resources. It was serious enough that HR demanded a meeting. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding. I immediately suspected who was behind this. Emily, or worse, Emily and my parents. This wasn't just family drama anymore. They were trying to ruin my career. With my stomach in knots, I realized that either Emily, my parents, or both had crossed the line. Taking a deep breath, I called my boss directly. "Hey, I just got your email. Can I come in and clear this up now?" "Yeah," he replied. To be honest, I was surprised to get this complaint. "It doesn't sound like you." In that moment, I knew I was safe. If my boss doubted the allegations, then Emily's plan was already falling apart. When I arrived at the office, I met with HR and calmly explained everything. I showed them my financial records, which clearly proved I hadn't misused any company funds. I even admitted that some family members were upset with me for cutting them off financially. By the time I left the meeting, the complaint was dismissed. But I wasn't done. I headed straight to my parents' house. I wasn't going to wait for another attack. I was determined to end this now. When I walked in, my dad was casually watching TV on the couch, and Emily was there too, scrolling through her phone. My mom emerged from the kitchen, her expression shifting as soon as she saw me. "Tom," she said carefully, "you should have called before coming over." I ignored her and fixed my gaze on Emily. "You tried to get me fired," I accused. She didn't even flinch. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied. I pulled out my phone, opened the HR email and held it up. "You really think I wouldn't find out?" she scoffed. "You can't prove it was me." Then I turned to my parents. "And you? Did you let this happen?" My dad waved his hand dismissively. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. If you just kept helping your sister, none of this would have happened." I clenched my fists. "Let me be crystal clear. If any of you contact me again, if you so much as breathe in my direction, I will call the police." Emily rolled her eyes. "For what? Harassment? Making false accusations? For sending Jacob to my door to threaten me?" My mom's face paled. "Now, Tom, let's not take this too far." I cut her off. "You've gone too far. You're the one who escalated this. I have screenshots of texts, call logs, everything I need to prove what you've been doing. If you don't leave me alone, I'm pressing charges." My dad's jaw tightened and finally Emily's smug expression faded. My mom looked like she was about to cry again, but for once she stayed silent. "I'm leaving. Stay away from me," I warned, and then I walked out. For a few days there were no texts or calls. I almost believed they had finally given up. Then my cousin Jake called. "I just heard from Aunt Linda that you got fired for stealing from your job. What the hell is going on?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't been fired. "Who told you that?" I asked. "Your mother said you have mental problems and are pushing the family away," he replied. I exhaled sharply. When they couldn't manipulate me, they tried to ruin my reputation. Over the next 2 days, relatives kept contacting me. My uncle mentioned he'd heard I was gambling. My grandmother called to say she was praying for me because my parents had told her I was having a breakdown. I was done. I sent a message to our family group chat. "I'm hearing a lot of lies about me, so I want to set the record straight." I cut off financial support to my parents and Emily because they were using me. They retaliated by spreading false rumors and even tried to get me fired. None of what they're saying is true. If anyone has questions, please ask me directly. Soon after, I started receiving phone calls, not to yell at me but to support me. My aunt, my uncle, and some cousins were all furious once they realized what had really happened. One by one, they told me they believed me and were disgusted by what my parents and Emily had done. My uncle even told my father directly, "Leave Tom alone. If you keep this up, you're going to lose the rest of the family." And just like that, it was over. The calls stopped, the messages ceased, and my parents and Emily finally backed off. Not because they wanted to, but because they had lost. For the first time in years, I felt free. Even after they backed off, I couldn't shake the feeling they'd try something else. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but eventually. People like them never change. They're just waiting for their next chance. And I wasn't going to give them one. That night I decided. I was done with them forever. The next morning I started searching for jobs in another state. I'd always thought about leaving, but that stupid sense of obligation to my family kept me here. Now nothing held me back. Within 2 weeks I had a job lined up in another city. A better salary, a fresh start, and most importantly, a place where they couldn't reach me. I didn't tell anyone. Quietly I packed my things, sold what I didn't need, and sat alone in my empty apartment the night before the move. As I sat there I realized how much of my life I'd wasted on them. For 2 years I'd put Emily's needs ahead of my own. Skipping vacations, working overtime, tightening my own budget, so she could lie to me and live better than I did. And my parents, they were never on my side. No matter how much I gave, it was never enough. In their eyes I wasn't family, I was just a resource, a walking ATM. I was a complete idiot. But not anymore. I changed my number, blocked them on everything, and deleted every old message and email that connected me to them. Then I got in my car and drove away. No goodbyes, no explanations, just a clean break. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly living for myself.